G'day and welcome back to RC Model Reviews. What have I got on the bench today? Well, let me pull out a little bit so you can see what I've got on the bench today. It is the Shuriken 180. Let's go up a bit so you can see the writing on the box. But we don't do unboxings here. This is what should be inside. On the back of the box it has all the specifications, which are really hard to read actually because it's kind of a grey print on a black background, and the little writing is really hard to read. But it's not important because what you get's what you get. Let's have a look at what you get. Let's get rid of the box, as we do. Oh, there's more to undo because it comes in this lovely carry case. A lot of quads are these days, a lot, especially the ready-to-fly ones, coming in these little carry cases. This is from HolyBro, it says so on the box. Let's take a look inside. And here is the box. Got a couple of zips on it here, so it's easy to open. I really do like the fact that you can throw these things, a lot of quads now, into these little cases because it makes it so much easier to transport them. And here's what you get. It's a mini quad. Yes, it is, and I'm sorry about this, all my fixed wing fans. It's winter. I can't do much just at the moment other than look at stuff on the bench, and mini quads of what I've got here. It's what I'll be looking at. So from HolyBro, comes with an antenna, doesn't say whether it's left or right hand polarized, and it just pulls out of the box. Woo, what could be simpler? I've done an uncasing, there you go, and some stuff up in the top here too. Oops, sorry, banged the camera. There's a whole lot of, I haven't even looked at this, so you're looking at it at the same time I'm looking at it. Ooh, I like the name Shuriken, it sounds pretty cool. It's got some papers there, and oh man, look, stickers. Everybody loves stickers. And we've got a little brochure. We've got some spare props. It's always a bonus feature. And here's the little spec sheet on it. So give me a moment to browse through this and I'll tell you what we've got. Okay, I've had a very quick browse. Basically, it comes with some 1806 motors, and when I saw that I thought, nah, 1806, man, the bearings never last in an 1806 motor. That's old school. But then I read the instructions. It says it's got a 3mm shaft, which is good for an 1806 because that's why the bearings in 1806 motors used to wear out. They had tiny little shafts, which meant really small bearings, which meant that they just didn't last. If this has got 3mm shaft, then not only is it going to be robust, but the bearings should last a long time as well. And you should get ample power of an 1806 on a 180 sized mini quad. Has a live video camera, of course, CMOS. We'll see how that works because, you know, I'm not a great fan of CMOS, but CMOS cameras have improved dramatically in recent times, so it may be up to the task. I don't know. We've got, these are quite flexy props, probably for a reason, because this, you know, a ready-to-fly model like this or a plug-and-fly is probably going to be used by beginners, so plenty of flexi props reduces the chance of bending a motor shaft, even though they're 3mm. That's probably good to have the flexi props, also less chance of hurting somebody. One thing I like also is on the back here, it's got a great big message that tells you do not connect power without first connecting the antenna. Brilliant, because as we know, if you run a video transmitter without an antenna, you have a very real risk of damaging it. So that's just to remind people that you shouldn't do that. And let's take a look at the construction of this thing. It's got this yellow subframe in here, which is really quite nice. It's got a carbon top plate, and on the bottom it looks like it's just circuit board. Let's have a look. Yeah, I'd say that, I'm not sure what that is actually. Could be glass circuit board, I'm not sure. It's got a reinforcement through here, which is quite nice. Your little connector for your flight controllers in the back there. It's all very, I guess that's all very neat and tidy. It's the thing that strikes me most is just how tidy this damn thing is. I don't expect it'll be a speed demon because there is quite a bit of flat area there being presented to the air, but I mean, the market for these is probably going to be, you know, the first time mini quad flyer who wants something they don't have to fart around with. They just want to throw a battery on it, and it comes, you got a choice here. They say they provide it with a Spektrum or a FASST compatible receiver. They provided this one with the FrSky XS4R or whatever it is, the little S-bus receiver, which is really good. And they've got some videos I noticed on the YouTube channel showing how to install receivers, how to make a few changes and tweaks and things. It's nice to have that online support. So what I'm going to have to do with this, of course, is take the top off and bind it, because although it came with a receiver, there's no way to bind it without taking the lid off, which will give us a good chance to take a look inside. Let's do it. And here's what we find inside when we lift the lid off. It's actually quite nicely designed and laid out. And as I thought, that black layer underneath is circuit board, so normally I'd say, you know, you don't really want to put stress loads on circuit board, but because we've got this quite thick carbon top, it's probably, you know, 3mm, and you've got this plastic layer here which is going to be edge on. There shouldn't be very much flexing of that lower board. Perhaps the only time might be on these motors here, because the motors are bolted to the circuit board, not to the carbon board. So it'll be interesting to see how this stands up to knocks and tumbles, although reasonably optimistic at this stage. The camera on the board just plugs in. There's a little lead there, so that was easy to get off. Now there's the XSR receiver, and I will go ahead and bind this up and we'll set up the flight controller. Right, we're in bind mode, and yes, I did put the antenna on. I read the instructions. It always helps. Saves smoke coming out. So let's hold the bind button down and plug this in. Sometimes easier said than done when there's only one of you and you've only got one hand. Let's try and hold that little button down on there. Ooh, can I feel it clicking? Hopefully oh no, it's a bit hard to tell. Let's try. Not sure if that's bound or not. Let's go back and turn off the bind mode and we'll soon tell. Yes, we're bound. Look at that. Excellent. Probably can't see the green light, but there's a green light there. It's bound. Excellent. Now I'm going to leave the top off because I'm going to set up the flight controller, and I'll need to also set the fail-safe on my receiver. I'll do that now. I won't bother documenting that. I've done it in other videos. So I will do a jump cut now to the fully set up machine. One thing I noticed was plugging in the USB connector for the flight controller actually powers up the receiver as well, which is quite handy. I don't know if it powers the ESC. No, it doesn't seem to power the ESC, so calibration shouldn't be an issue if you want to do a calibration later. But yeah, that's handy. You don't have to plug in your main battery supply to do that. I don't know if the video obviously the video transmitter it says PF, maybe that's power failure. I don't know what that means. I'd have to look at the instructions. But anyway, that seems to be well thought out and well designed. And I've just set up the flight controller with air mode. Well, I had air mode set up. I had to set up my switches. I've bound it. I've set the fail safe. So we should be ready to fly this thing. I'll throw it back together. But maybe before I do that, let's have a closer look at all this internal electronic goodness. Let's start with these ESCs. They're just labelled 2 to 4S Opto Shuriken. So we don't know what they're running, BL, Heli or whatever. Maybe it has it in the instructions. I don't know. But it's nice to see that separate ESCs have been used. They haven't actually been built into the circuit board because they're going to be one of the key failure points if you do have a problem. More likely it's the ESC that blows. So if you can change it, that's bleeding marvellous. Now, if I turn this around a bit, actually I'm going to unplug the USB connector so we're no longer powering it up because we don't need power on it. Let's turn things around. Yeah, radio complains. There are our motors. I've checked this. They do seem to have 3mm shafts. Now we have, let me move my Tyrannus out of the way. Down here we've got our 5.8 gigahertz video transmitter module. It's a pretty stock standard affair. It's 5 band, so it's got race band and everything. It is 600 milliwatts. They say it's switchable to 25, which would be brilliant if you actually want to race these, because really 25 milliwatts is all you need for racing. In fact, if you have more than 25 milliwatts, quite often it's difficult to get more than just 3 or maybe 4 people on the band without all sorts of problems. Now, move down here. What else have we got? We've got some power supply stuff here. It's got a beeper, which is good. And there's a jumper there. That's probably for changing the video transmitter power. I'll play with that later. Bit of a bodge wire here, running all the way down. See that orange wire? Bit of a bodge wire. You get that sometimes. There's a lot of extra circuitry in here, actually. I'm surprised how much extra stuff is in there. This is obviously the flight controller. And there's the IMU for the flight controller. It's mounted on a little bit of a rubbery thing, so vibration won't affect it too much. That's kind of nice. So they've built their flight controller into the main board, which, it's good in some ways, not so good in other ways, I suppose. If you have a failure of the flight controller, you've got to get a whole new board. But this is an entry level thing for people who just want convenient and quick. So in that respect, there are always going to be compromises, and yeah, not much else to see here. Here we go, the moment of truth. What have we got? 213 grams. Well, it's not the lightest 180 size miniquad by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I'll go over here and get my DAL 180 or DL 180, I can't remember what it's called, which is all set up the same except without a battery. What does that come in at? 319 versus... they're identical. So, I was lying. This is one of my favourite little miniquads. It's the DAL 180, but you've got to build it yourself, of course, DL 180. This is the same weight, so I'm actually really impressed with the fact that they've got it down to the same weight when it's got like plastic and so forth on it. That's really kind of good. Woohoo! Like it. I should probably also point out this little camera in the front here. This does tilt. You've got quite an angle of tilt if you want it. It'll tilt really, really high. Or if you're just a beginner, you can angle it down, get more of a sensible attitude on the world. There you go. Right. Charge your battery. Let's do it. Well, there you go. You can probably tell by the smile on my face I've had a quick flight, but we didn't get a chance to get any video before the weather packed up. It's just winter. So, yeah, I'm surprised how well this flies for, I mean, it looks a bit toyish, doesn't it? But it's quite locked in with the standard PIDs. It just, yeah, it's got enough power. I flew it on 3 cells. It's just a little 3-cell nanotech pack. And it seemed to have, it was reasonably peppy actually, considering I thought, it was going to be porky, but no. it's not as heavy as it looks, and it does fly rather nicely. So this will be going in the big pile of mini quads that are to be flight tested when the weather comes right, hopefully soon. And so watch out for a flight test on this. But I'd have to say, looking at it, just having a look inside, it's really well put together. It's a nice design because, I mean, this is such a rigid frame. I don't think I've seen a mini quad frame as rigid as this. Honestly, the combination of that vertical plastic webbing and the carbon have just made this such a rigid piece of kit. Now, the only unknowns at this stage are the quality of the video camera, which we'll only know once we do some FPV with it. And yeah, so the setup of the flight control was really simple, really easy. I liked that. There was no unexpected surprises. And there wasn't really a lot of setting up to do anyway, so just customizing it to the way I like to have mine set up, with the way I set up my air mode and my arming and so forth. So yeah, that was really cool. I'm looking forward to getting some airtime with this, and I think a lot of people are going to like to use this around here for their first venture into mini quad flying, because it certainly looks tough. Not so sure about this FPV antenna. It's maybe a little... I did see another video on YouTube where someone put a cable tie around there and around the camera unit just to give the antenna a bit more support, because whack, that runs the risk of breaking that SMA connector off. You can actually see on the bottom, hopefully, if you're watching in HD, that that's soldered onto the board, so there's no real physical support for that SMA connector. It could cause, although the actual screw unit does touch against the carbon, so who knows. And I haven't checked to see whether this is left or right hand polarized. I don't know if it will come apart easily. Can't get my fingernail on there to get it apart, so perhaps not. Anyway, those are the little things. That's it. Well, yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy. I like this. Now, I do also have the people from HolyBro were kind enough to send me the big brother, the Shuriken 250. And this has some extra benefits. It's red, won't show the blood, which is always important. And what does it say? It's got 2205. Oh, one thing I meant to mention on this. These are, in fact, 2700 kV motors. Hold on. I did have a look when the thing was apart. Yep, 2700 kV, which explains why they get reasonably good performance, these tiny little props. Lots of kVs. And so, yeah, the big brother I'll be looking at very shortly. I wouldn't expect it to be too much different to the little one, but we'll try it and find out. It certainly looks pretty much the same from the outside. So stay tuned. Lots of flight. I'm going to be burnt out after doing all these flight tests, but I don't mind. It's all good fun. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.